If someone told me that the iQOO 12, India's first Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 phone, would be priced under Rs 55,000, I would have scoffed at them. Because I've used this phone as my daily driver for a while now, and I genuinely thought that it would be priced higher. And you know what I really like? When a brand actually listens to user feedback and reviewer feedback and improves their products. The iQOO 12 is one such product. So let's jump right in and find out what's good on the iQOO 12 and what's not in my detailed review. If you're here for the first time, I'm Ershad. You're watching Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. It goes without saying that the iQOO 12 is the most premium looking iQOO phone yet. Just look at this thing. Ours is a Legend variant with the BMW collab. There's also a black color variant and it's called Alpha. That looks good too. The rear is made of AG glass and of course it's in white color, and it gives you the look and feel of a ceramic phone, but it's actually glass. I like the fact that the BMW stripes and the iQOO logo have been moved tastefully to the bottom right corner, so it's tastefully aligned as well. It's very well done. But that fascination meets innovation slogan continues to exist. Could have been avoided in my opinion. Anyway, that's just a very minor niggle of mine, and when you move your vision upwards to this camera module, this is possibly one of the nicest looking camera modules around. It's got this squircle design, the metal frame has serrated edges, it's very, very premium. You've got a metal frame, aluminum alloy to be precise, and of course it's a glass sandwich design, so you've got glass on the front as well, which is protected by Short Sensation UP glass protection. On the rear, you don't get any glass protection. Short Sensation UP or UP is something that iQOO has used for a while now, and it seems to be as good as Corning Gorilla Glass 5. Also, the phone is pretty slim at 8.1 millimeters, and it tips the scale at about little more than 205 grams, which is actually very comfortable and handy to use daily. But one thing I noticed in my daily usage is that if you don't use the phone with a case, it does feel slippery sometimes, but iQOO does bundle a case in the box, so why would you do that? The rest of the design includes the power button and the volume rocker on the right edge. You've also got the stereo speaker setup top and bottom. You've got a couple of mics. You've got a SIM card tray which accepts 2 nano SIM cards, and of course you've got a USB Type-C port, but only USB Type-C 2.0 speeds are supported. This is the first letdown in the iQOO 12 for me because this is a flagship phone. It should come, all 2024 flagships should come with USB 3.0, that's for sure. Anyway, coming back to a thing that's good on the iQOO 12, you've got IP64 rating, so you've got dust protection and protection from water sprays. Overall, again, the iQOO 12 looks very, very good, and it has my stamp of approval for sure. On the front, you get a massive 6.78-inch AMOLED display with 1.5K resolution on tap. And on this flat front panel, you've got very tiny bezels on all the 4 corners, which does give it a lot of screen estate, including the fact that the chin at the bottom is also very, very slim. But the only thing about the bezels that I must mention is that they're not all equally sized on all the 4 sides. And of course, in a 2024 flagship, the one thing that a lot of brands are going to be flexing is the peak brightness metric. So the iQOO 12 can reach a peak brightness of 3000 nits, but that's only in a 10% window when you're watching HDR content on Netflix or YouTube. Yes, Netflix HDR is also supported. But if you're using the phone and if you slide the brightness slider to the maximum level, then you get about 700 nits of peak brightness. And when you take it outdoors in direct sunlight, you get about 1700 nits of peak brightness, which is also very good. By the way, I did make a video explaining these brightness metrics, a short video. If you haven't watched that yet, go check it out. The point is, these flagship phones are using very bright panels, and this is not going to be a point of concern at all for you. But what should matter is how is the color accuracy. So in the standard mode, you get DCI-P3 color gamut, and it's pretty decent with a slightly cooler, bluish tones. Having said that, if you use the Pro mode, you get the sRGB output, and it's extremely natural. You can actually trust it for even photo edits and video edits. That apart, the phone has a peak refresh rate of 144 Hz, but the peak refresh rate only activates when you're playing games. So when you're actually using the system normally with the operating system and the UI elements, all of that runs at 120 Hz. But again, 120 Hz is very smooth, the touch response is very fast, and the operating system has been tuned so that animations feel fast and smooth as well. So the touch sampling rate is about 300 Hz, and when you're playing games, the instant touch sampling rate actually bumps up to 1200 Hz. And more importantly, the iQOO 12 has an LTPO panel which can go down to 1 Hz and up to 120 Hz. And it does go down to 1 Hz, especially when you have AOD on. The system does save a lot of battery by switching to 1 Hz whenever higher refresh rate is not required. Plus, iQOO has added something called a Q1 chip, which is a dedicated chip for MEMC, which is motion interpolation for both games and videos. So essentially, if you're watching certain videos at 24 FPS, it can bump up to 60 FPS, 30 FPS, it can bump up to 60 FPS. Basically, it inserts frames in between. This is something that we've seen in the past, and MEMC is something that I am not really a fan of because it takes away from that cinematic look. But game frame interpolation in certain games that do support it is useful because the games do feel smoother. Oh, by the way, the Q1 chip also supports something called game super resolution. Essentially, there are certain games which run at 720p that can be bumped up to 900p. Okay, so the display is fantastic, but what about the audio experience? Well, you have stereo speakers and the stereo speakers sound good enough. Take a listen to it right next to the OnePlus 11 and let me know what you guys think. That apart, you do have support for high-res audio through USB Type-C, but you will need a dedicated, high-res dongle for it. And you also get support for LHDC and LDAC codecs. So if you have a high-res Bluetooth device, that works too. Also, part of the display is the in-display fingerprint scanner, which is very fast to unlock the phone. No problem over there. And the haptic feedback has been tuned very well too. It's not the best haptic feedback out there, but it's precise, it's tactile. I like it. Alright, moving on to performance. Yes, the iQOO 12 is India's first phone with Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but that's not it. It also comes with LPDDR5X RAM and UFS 4.0 storage. There are two variants that are available, the 12256GB and 16512GB. We've been testing the 16512GB variant. And along with those specs, what you get is a massive vapor cooling chamber of 6010 millimeter squares. I don't know specifically if this is the biggest vapor cooling chamber ever used, but iQOO claims it is, and it helps keep the phone cool. I'll talk about that. Because we recently tested the Xiaomi 14 Pro. If you haven't watched that video yet, you should go check it out. And the iQOO 12 doesn't run as hot as the Xiaomi 14 Pro did. And the vapor cooling chamber could be one of the reasons why. So in Antutu, we got the best Antutu score on an Android flagship yet, and it beats the Xiaomi 14 Pro as well. Also, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 supports ray tracing, and we've started including the Solar Bay ray tracing test, which is there within 3D Mark. Again, over there as well, the iQOO 12 scores more than the Xiaomi 14 Pro. However, ray tracing supported games are not here yet. In 3D Mark, the average FPS that we got after our 20-minute run was slightly higher on the Xiaomi 14 Pro compared to the iQOO 12, but the Xiaomi 14 Pro lost a lot more battery life and it got way hotter, 50 degrees as opposed to 43 degrees. And 43 degrees is dissipated across the body, so it's very comfortable to actually use in the long run. If you're playing long gaming sessions, the iQOO 12 is definitely a better phone than the Xiaomi 14 Pro, that's for sure. And in our CPU throttle test, where we engaged 40 threads for 30 minutes, we got a CPU stability score of 75% in the monster mode on iQOO and 85% in the balanced mode, and we'd gotten about 82% on the Xiaomi 14 Pro in normal mode, not the performance mode. But even there, I need to mention this, the Xiaomi 14 Pro touched 48 degrees. I think this one touched about 42 degrees. The iQOO 12 is also one of the best phones that I've used recently for gaming because I played Call of Duty on it and the game runs at 120 FPS in the multiplayer mode at medium graphics, and it's 120 FPS consistent, and I was like, wow, this is damn good. We also ran a Genshin Impact test where we played the game for 30 minutes at highest graphics and we got an average FPS of 59.1, which is absolutely fantastic. That apart, when you're looking at network connectivity options, you get Wi-Fi 7, you've got an IR blaster, you've got NFC support, you've got support for Bluetooth 5.4, you've got all the requisite 5G bands that you need. Airtel and Jio, I tested it, works absolutely fine. Again, performance-wise, no concerns whatsoever. So you must be like, okay, performance is great, the battery life must be really bad. Well, it's not. So firstly, it's got a 5000 mAh battery inside and you get a 120 watt flash charge tech charger inside the box itself. 0 to 100 takes about 26 minutes to charge. That's about it. And I got a consistent screen on time of over 6 hours with my extremely heavy usage on the iQOO 12, which is fantastic. You can easily eke out 7 to 8 hours of battery life from a flagship phone. Well done, iQOO. But for those who want wireless charging, that's not present on the iQOO 12. Now, every iQOO Vivo phone that I've reviewed in the recent past, I've been critical of the FunTouch OS experience. But thankfully, iQOO is listening to all of our feedback and making certain changes and improving upon the experience. Firstly, the iQOO 12 comes with Android 14 out of the box, and of course, it's FunTouch OS 14. And apart from the Google Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro, I don't know any other phone that's launched with Android 14 out of the box right now. So iQOO is first to that as well, apart from the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro. And iQOO has also promised 3 years of software updates and 4 years of security updates as well. There are a laundry list of features that have been improved in the FunTouch OS 14 experience. I've made a dedicated video on it. If you guys haven't watched it yet, definitely go check it out. But I wanted to highlight one thing. There are no hot apps and hot games, and there are no bloatware apps per se. There are some third-party apps like Netflix, Snapchat, all of which can be uninstalled. There's PhonePe as well. There is no bloatware app as such, which is very, very good. I have a couple of gripes that I want to be fixed with FunTouch OS in the next version, is that the notification shade, the icons within the notification shade when you get a notification still look very, very odd. That apart, global search, if you have that swipe down on home screen to show up global search, it does give you some app recommendations that you might not necessarily need, especially on a flagship phone. Otherwise, definitely huge improvements have been achieved on the FunTouch OS 14 experience, which I'm glad about. Now, when I was testing the phone, I was like, okay, fine. iQOO 12's camera setup seems to be impressive too. You've got a 50MP primary camera, 50MP ultra wide, and a 64MP periscope 3x camera. And the 50MP primary is an Omnivision OV50H sensor. And apart from that, you've got the OV64B sensor for the telephoto, and you've got the Samsung JN1 for the ultra wide. So I have done a camera comparison of the iQOO 12 against the iPhone 15. If you haven't watched it yet, go check it out. A link should pop up right now. But let me just quickly give you my abridged quick summary of what I thought about the camera experience. Basically, the primary camera takes good pictures. I particularly like the HDR performance, which seems to be better than the iPhone 15 in many scenarios. However, the 12.5MP pixel bin samples, the details are slightly lacking, and the color science, despite having a natural mode, is not very accurate. That said, the pictures do look good, especially when you start taking pictures in low light. The low light performance on the iQOO 12 is fantastic. It's beating the iPhone 15 easily. Now, if you're shooting friends and family, then you've got a decent amount of details in the pictures, but it does tend to brighten the skin a tad more than I'd like. So the skin could have been more natural color. Having said that, the portrait mode on the iQOO 12 has fantastic edge detection, whether you're shooting in 1x, 2x or 3x. And especially the 3x portrait mode does come in handy a lot. Talking about the 3x periscope camera, that is the winner on this phone. There are very few phones in this price category. I think there's only the S23 or the S23 FE that offers you a proper 3x telephoto camera, but this one's a 3x periscope. So even at longer zoom ranges, you get really good pictures, especially those 10x shots. Some of the 10x shots that I took looked particularly impressive. Now, the ultra wide angle camera has enough details and good low light performance, but it could have had a wider attached lens and definitely better color science consistency as well. Videos can be shot at 4K 60fps using the primary, the ultra wide and the telephoto, and the kind of videos that we got were pretty good actually. The sound quality was good, the stabilization was good, and even the image quality was pretty decent. In fact, the low light video recording was very, very good. But selfie video is still locked at 1080p 30fps, unfortunately, and there is no stabilization either. There are a lot of camera modes and features as well. For example, there's a super moon mode, there's the astro mode, but there's a new fisheye mode, which is a really fun way to shoot pictures. Also, there's the macro mode. Apart from that, you've got the telemacro mode with the periscope camera, so you can really go close to subjects and get really good macro shots as well. So with the iQOO 12, you might not get the consistency with the cameras, but you get a versatile set of cameras and you get great camera performance, especially if you work a little bit with it. I think the hardware is there. A little bit of fine tuning would make this one of the best cameras under 60,000. The iQOO 12 is easily the company's best attempt at making a flagship phone yet, and that too by a huge margin. There are improvements across the board. You've got great design, you've got great display, the software has been improved, the camera performance is fantastic, the performance is obviously great. So therefore, you can overlook some of the compromises, especially considering the fact that the phone has been priced aggressively as well. I'm sure that a lot of folks would be hesitant to buy the iQOO 12 right now, considering the OnePlus 12 is right around the corner. The global launch is about a month away. But I really don't want to comment on the OnePlus 12 at the moment until I test it. At the moment, the iQOO 12 is definitely a better buy compared to the OnePlus 11 or whatever's available in the market as a budget flagship right now. So there's a bit of a head start that iQOO gets with the iQOO 12. So would you give your money to the iQOO 12? Let me know in the comment section below. And that was my review of the phone. What did you guys think? You liked it? You didn't like it? What do you think of the phone? I'd love to know your thoughts. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.